Good evening and welcome to the City of Sharonville's very virtual council meeting. Today is April 14th and I would like to welcome everyone. We're not going to be standing for the pledge, but we are going to place our hands upon our heart, and I'm going to ask our mayor, Kevin Hardman, to please lead us in prayer and the pledge.
Thanks, Vicki. I would ask at this time for those who do pray, please join me in prayer. For those who wish to just take a moment to think about all of us during this time as we're dealing with the unprecedented. So first, just ask for a couple minutes of silence, and then I will I'll pray us out of that for those who wish to join me. Almighty God, we thank you for giving us the ability to work with you amongst our community. We just ask that you be with us as we continue to make decisions for your city here in Sharonville. We ask that you be with our first responders, our police officers, our firefighters, our public works employees who continue to work during this time of uncertainty. We just ask that you give them the strength and ability to work through these times, that you can certainly lift them up and keep all of these troubles and these viruses away from them and away from our families and the families of those we love. For those who are afflicted, we ask that you continue to be with them, that you continue and hopefully bring them through these trials and these tough times so that they too can see that through all of this, there is a light that shines at the end of a dark tunnel, an opportunity for us to regain not just our city, not just our state, our country, but our entire world to the place where of prosperity, a place of continued ability to help those who are in need, and a place where we can continue to do your work and to do your will. And all God's people said, amen.
Amen. Amen.
Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America
and to
the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice
for all.
Thank you, Mayor. Roll call, Mrs. Buhite, please.
Mr. Tankersley?
Here.
Mr. Wilson?
Here.
Mr. Lippert?
Here.
Mr. Duda?
Here.
Mr. Cook?
Here.
Mrs. Knight? Here. Mr. Schmidt?
He's muted, but he is here.
I see him there. Yep.
What do I have to hit?
Oh, there you go,
Yeah.
Paul.
Okay, we're good.
All right, thank you. Approval of our minutes from our March 10th meeting. Is there a motion to pass? I'm sorry. Is there any corrections or additions to the March 10th meeting minutes? I'm looking and I don't see anyone saying anything. So I'm going to say those are going to be approved and written as distributed. And we'll move on to our reports and communication. Mayor Hardman.
Once again, thanks, Vicki. So things are a lot different today than they were a month ago when we all met together in council chambers. It's different for us here on council. I know it's different for our residents as they continue to deal with this current public health emergency. I just hope that they know and all of you know that through all of this, your city employees and your city council are continuing to do our job and continuing to work in the same strength that we have always done. I want to take a minute, first of all, to recognize all of our police officers, our firefighters, our public works employees. All three of those groups of our city are continuing to do the same day-to-day job duties that they have done before this public health emergency. They will continue to do it during this public health emergency, and I know that they will continue it for every day after that. I truly believe that all three of these entities of the city of Sharonville are the best in Hamilton County, if not best in the state of Ohio. And they continue to do a great job. I especially want to take a moment to thank our police department. Since the last time we met, there obviously was a tragic death amongst a neighboring community police department, that being Kaya Grant and the Springdale Police Department. And the good work of our Sharonville Police Department, many of our members there helped out, whether it be in dispatch or on the road or responding to calls as that police department dealt with a terrible tragedy that hits far too close to home, I know, for many of the folks in our department. So we want to continue to send our hearts out to the Springdale Police Department, to Kaya's family, and just a big thanks to our own police department for being able to be there and help, especially as we are continuing to deal with the public health emergencies. I've asked both police and fire chief to be with us here tonight, and I know that they're going to address you with a little bit more about what is happening within those departments to maintain their strength and to maintain their physical health throughout this process. So I know you're going to hear from them a little bit as well. So I don't want to take any much more time from them. From a city financial standpoint, as many of you know, for those who may be watching this, are the county, the city of Cincinnati. We've been hearing a lot of dire predictions from other jurisdictions that exist around us. I am very pleased to say, and I think a lot of this has to do with the hard work of the members of council in budgeting and being fiscally responsible in really good times as a city, that as it stands right now, we have not needed to resort to any furloughs or layoffs of our employees, that our employees are fully employed. All of them pretty much. There's a few other than the departments I just mentioned and a few others here and there, but most of them are working from home thanks to our IT department that has made that possible in order to strengthen them and give them the tools and ability to continue to serve our residents and our businesses in that way. So as of right now, that is the method by which we are continuing on. We have some great staff who are looking for new and inventive ways to reach out to our community where they may not be able to come, for example, to our recreation center right now because it's closed. But we're encouraging our employees and through the great work of Michael Blomer, the head of that department, to think of ways to creatively reach out to our community through technology so that they know that they're there. Working on initiatives to help those who might be in need. Some of you, and hopefully all of you, have seen the Sharonville Serves initiative, and I know we're using some recreation employees to help out in that particular realm so that we can reach out for those who might not have the ability to get out of their homes during these stay-at-home orders to help provide them some needs so that we continue to prop them up as a city. Looking for ways that we can just share the ability for families here in Sharonville to find something to entertain their children and their families throughout this process. So I commend them so that you know a little bit about some of the things that they are doing. Make sure that you're on our Facebook pages, the Sharonville Recreation Department's Facebook pages. I know they've been posting some great things in order to get their faces out into our community so that people know that they continue to be there for them throughout this process. With all of that good news being shared, we know there's a lag. We know at some point we are going to see a financial impact from this. We don't know what that is yet. I think we're going to start seeing that in April, especially because of the fact that our typical income tax collection that comes in April will be delayed until July. So we'll start seeing that in April with regard to some of our withholding, as well as the regular income tax payments come in. Once we see that, we'll have a better idea and get a better hold of how much this impact is going to have upon our ability, our revenue sources, in order to continue some of the things we do, to look at some of our capital expenditures and things that are happening here in the city for the best of our community. But right now we are in very good shape. We feel very comfortable in continuing to work as we are through at least April, through the end of this month. Hopefully we will start seeing the curve flatten, actually come down so that we can, our businesses can reopen and be able to get back to a normal position where we were before, as far as at least a revenue stream coming in to help support our city services. We obviously know that one of our biggest employers, actually our biggest employer in Sharonville, Ford, has been shut down for a period of time. And that startup date has been pushed back for those who don't know yet. So hopefully they will be able to get rearing back up and back into full production, and that will continue to give us a little sigh of relief when that moment happens, and give us an idea of what exactly or to what extent the COVID-19 issues are going to care for us and our city finances, not just for 2020, but beyond. Yesterday morning, I received a phone call from a local news station, and they wanted to know if I had any comment about a group of people who were being brought to Red Roof Inn here in Sharonville in order to find a place for them to shelter and stay. So I called that news station back. It was the first I had heard of it, and just got some information from them, as well as hearing what the status is. I will tell you what I told the news station yesterday, and that is we as a city have no control over who our hotels and businesses rent to. They are a public entity. They are private entities that can choose to rent to any person, regardless of whatever condition they may be in. And at the end of the day, today, just like every other day, we welcome folks to come to the city of Sharonville. We welcome them into our hotels. We welcome them into our community, and they will be treated as the people that they are, regardless of whatever condition they are. I am proud of the fact that the Red Roof Inn is able to step in that way. I'm glad that there's a group like Maslow's Army that can step up and help individuals and a very vulnerable individuals in a time where they need a place, a roof over their head, an opportunity to shelter themselves, an opportunity where they can be safe, where they can also not contract this virus, and for that matter, not share this virus with other people around them. That's the information I shared with the news station when they called me. It's the information I've shared with individuals who have called me about this issue. And all I know is that we have at least 75 more people that are living in Sharonville today than there were yesterday. And they're people, plain and simple. They needed a roof over their head. They needed shelter. They needed a place where they can be safe. My understanding is they are Ohio residents. They weren't people that were kicked out of Kentucky because they belonged in Kentucky. They are Ohio residents who are in Ohio now. My also understanding as well is that based on the orders from the state of Ohio, they are self-quarantining themselves for a period of 14 days so that they can stay away themselves from others if any of them should happen to have the virus. My also understanding is the folks that are hosting them, the folks that are paying for them to stay at the Red Roof Inn are taking precautions themselves in order to take temperatures, to observe symptoms, and also providing food for these individuals while they are staying in our community. So like I said, I welcome them. I hope they will be good citizens. We have a great police department, as I've already said, and as long as everybody, just like any other person that comes into Sharonville, as long as they're law-abiding and doing everything that they're supposed to do, we are glad to have them. We are glad to have them as part of our community, and hopefully they can ride out these very troubling and uncertain times, just like the rest of us. Finally, hopefully you've all seen there's all kinds of great stuff. Social media technology is great, and it's obviously all something that we're turning to during this period of times. And it's a great opportunity to see some of our city businesses just stepping up during this period of time, looking for ways that they can help serve first responders, help serve those in the medical field who are on the front lines of this virus and this disease that's going on. Our food train is moving right along. We kicked that off, and hopefully that will help bring folks in and grabbing some carry out from all of those small restaurant businesses around Sharonville during this time. So they too, I mean, this is tough for each and every one of them. So we want to help encourage any opportunity that you have to help encourage a small business here in Sharonville, whether you need some hardware or you need a good euro from Athenian or something from any one of our restaurants around here. We thank folks like The True. Some of you might have seen the post from our future Delta Marriott, the wonderful heart shape that they put on the side of their building in order to show their support for first responders and healthcare workers around our city and around our state. So, we just continue to, for those that pray, continue to pray. for all these small businesses, that they make it through this time, that they can find the help they need. Certainly, they're welcome to call the city. We will help do whatever we can to get them in touch with whatever resources we know of to help them get through this time so that they continue to serve the residents and businesses of here in the city of Sharonville during this bad time and for many, many, many more years to come. So I'm open up to any questions that you might have for me. But other than that, that is the end of my report for this evening. Thank you all. Stay healthy.
And right now, it's only the participants. Those watching us will have an opportunity to ask questions of the mayor or anyone on council. Do any council people have? Please raise your hand. Seeing none, we're going to move on to our Safety Service Director, Mr. Lucas.
Thank you. Before we get into the legislation tonight, as the mayor mentioned, Chiefs Vanover and Mousa are here to give brief updates on their departments in these times. So we're going to go to those first. And Chief Vanover, would you like to start? You're on mute, Chief.
There we go. I'll get this. I was going to try to share my screen here. Sure.
Chief, we might need to have Vicky or Jason promote you to a co-host in order for you to be able to share your screen. If Vicky or Jason could add you as a co-host.
I just took care of that real quick.
Okay, so Jason took care of it, Chief. You should be able to share your screen now.
All right, I promised a PowerPoint. It's going to be really quick. You guys can hear me all right, I'm guessing. You guys, I was asked to talk about our COVID-19 pandemic response. These were the plans that we had in place as of March 17th. The police department was shut down to everybody, closed to the public, family, and friends, except for the lobby. Limits were placed on interaction among employees working in the building. We asked people to stay out as much as they could, the officers. Arrests were to be handled by summons to appear or transported directly to the jail when possible. We've tried to minimize proactive interaction with members of the public, so we're limiting traffic stops as much as we can. We're still doing enforcement, but we're doing what we have to do and not what we necessarily want to do, I guess. We implemented limited reporting procedures, which means that we're taking reports by telephone when practical. So if it's not a crime that we're going to respond to, if it's not a crime in progress, a crime of violence, a crime requiring the collection of evidence, a structure fire, we are not responding necessarily. If we're able to handle it by phone, we are. That's trying to minimize the contact between us and the public, protecting ourselves and protecting the public as well. When we do respond to take reports or when we do interact with the public, we're trying to do that in open air when it's practical and not going into people's houses or their residence. We've implemented limited crash auto crash reporting procedures also, which means that we're taking reports by telephone when practical again. We're responding to crashes with injuries, crashes where there are vehicles blocking the traffic way, requiring a tow truck. And then when there are unusual circumstances, we've got an OVI, utility pole or wires down, something that's unusual about the accident. And we've implemented some limited medical response procedures. This is in cooperation with the fire department. We're only responding to life-threatening situations unless we're requested by the fire department at this point. That's, again, minimizing the impact and trying to protect the health and safety of our officers. And preventative measures that were put in place before March 17th and were in effect on March 18th before we started all of this was we discontinued all ride-alongs, so any civilians or whatever come out to ride with our officers. We've eliminated all training and meetings which required face-to-face interaction have been canceled. We're not doing lockouts unless there's an emergency that exists. If we have a child locked in the car, we're obviously going to respond, but if it's somebody that simply locked their keys in the car, we're not responding at this point. We canceled web checks and fingerprinting services at the police department. We closed our workout room and gym at the same time that the city basically shut down the rec center and those facilities. We've eliminated our briefings and eliminated the shift overlaps as much as we could. Mayor's Court was closed after the 3/18/20 court date, and Mayor's Court personnel was, they're working remotely at this point, and that is actually going fairly well from my understanding. Our detectives, our community resource officer, and our quote non-essential civilian personnel were sent home to work remotely, and they've all been subject to recall. Our dispatchers switched to a 3-on, 3-off schedule to eliminate the overlap where there would be 2 dispatchers working at the same time and sharing a space. We're disinfecting the cruisers at the end of every shift, and after we've had anybody in our cruiser, the cruisers are disinfected again when that happens. We canceled our selective traffic enforcement program and our OVI enforcement details. Off-duty details have been eliminated, although nobody really wants our services at this point, it seems like. All of our officers, we've got 5 officers that are out right now on light duty or modified duty. They're all at home at this point. We just don't have the work inside the office to keep them busy. We put it out there where the employees can use their approved leave to care for family members who may be suffering from illness or childcare issues, such as, with the schools that closed. All of our public education details, classes, and events have been canceled until further notice. The convention center, their employees have been assisting with disinfecting and cleaning the police lobby, and I can't thank Jim Dalton and his group enough for those services. We put some additional staffing changes in effect just last week on April 8th. The police department declared an emergency on April 6th, which allowed me to make some scheduling changes within the police department. Our detectives and school resource officers and our community resource officer have been assigned and brought off of the on-call stay-at-home status. They've been brought back in and reassigned to road patrol duties. We switched from an 8.5-hour shift schedule to a 12-hour shift schedule. That was effective last Wednesday at 7 a.m. We've divided all of our personnel that are available to work road patrol into 6 squads. That allows us to provide 24/7 coverage with 4 of those squads covering it, working 12-hour shifts while 2 of the squads remain at home on call and quarantined. All squads rotate between working and remaining at home on call. So 1 squad stays home for 14 days and the other 2 cover the road 24/7. After that 2-week period, the squad that was in quarantine will come in and relieve one of the other squads, and we'll put somebody else out for 14 days. We also moved our dispatchers to the same 12-hour shift schedule and assigned them to the squads. The staffing changes allow for minimum contact between our working employees. So we've eliminated shift overlaps, and we're keeping a minimum number of people inside of the building at any given time, asking our officers to stay out as much as possible. Employees are available in the on-call status. They're subject to immediate recall to accommodate for any staffing shortages due to illness. So those employees that are at home, being paid to stay at home at this point, need to be available to respond within an hour of being called. This 2-week stay-at-home period coincides with the recommended quarantine period for anyone who contracts the virus. So if we were to have an employee that came down with the coronavirus or symptoms of the coronavirus, we're able to put them into quarantine and have able bodies to swap out. We also entered into a standing mutual aid agreement or mutual aid request between us, the city of Springdale, and the city of Forest Park. This is just solidifying what's already in place with the Hamilton County Mutual Aid Agreement, but the Hamilton County Mutual Aid Agreement requires us to ask for the help when we need it, and we just went ahead and entered into a standing agreement so that 3 neighboring jurisdictions can provide the coverage necessary, especially if one of the departments were to have a staffing shortage due to the virus. And we've brought in an outside company, EnviroMaster Services, which is based in Westchester, to provide some additional disinfecting services. They're coming in once a week, and they use an electrostatic sprayer to apply a disinfectant that's approved to kill the coronavirus. So once a week, they're coming in and disinfecting all the common areas, restrooms, and our cruisers, which the electrostatic sprayer gets into places where just wiping and stuff can't get into. The mayor touched on it. Springdale Police Department lost Officer Kaya Grant. She was murdered on 275 when a driver fleeing from police intentionally struck her as she was trying to put out stop sticks on March 21st. We did some things I think the mayor touched on a little bit, but we provided what services we could to Springdale Police Department to support them. A tragic loss like this basically put their entire police department they were basically unavailable for a little over a week. So between the Sharonville Police Department and the generous support of the Colerain Township Police Department, the two departments provided 24/7 police coverage from March 22nd until March 31st, or the morning of March 31st, when Springdale officers took back over patrol of their city. We staffed basically with one officer. We basically handled all of the calls for service on the entire east side of Springdale, while Colerain Township kind of took care of the west side. So that was a huge help, and Springdale was very much appreciative of that. Communications Supervisor Amy Williams was assigned to handle dispatching for the Springdale Police Department. She took care of all of the day shifts during that time period. Blue Ash Police Department and Colerain Township Police Department also pitched in there. Patrol Commander Mark Pruce was assigned to handle all of the scheduling between Sharonville and Colerain Township to ensure that we had all our patrol coverage, and really did an outstanding job. Administrative Lieutenant Jim Nesbitt, he was assigned to coordinate the COVID-19 response with Springdale Health Department, and he helped them get a lot of the things that we had already put in place inside of the Sharonville Police Department in place at the Springdale Police Department, and they've expressed a lot of appreciation for the services he provided. And then I also was able to assign Services Lieutenant Walt Cordes to the Springdale Police Department to assist with their planning, the procession and the funeral for Officer Grant. Officer Grant's funeral was held on March 29th and was attended by 20 of our employees, and we were able to send 9 cruisers to represent the Sharonville Police Department. That's the group that we were able to send on the 29th to honor Officer Grant and represent Sharonville. I wanted to just touch real quick on the new police station and the progress that's going on there. There have been some delays in the construction process due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Monarch Construction has seen some manpower shortages of somewhere in the range of 20 to 25% on a daily basis, whether it's employees who are ill or caring for somebody who may be ill or just is afraid to come to work. The latest timeline has the project delayed for about a month at this point, so we have a substantial completion date at the end of June and a project closeout at the end of July. These are a couple pictures. I actually was in the building over there today and snapped a couple quick pictures of the progress that's been made. Some of the delays have been getting some of the materials in that have been held up out of state. Windows and some of the cement fiberboard siding were being held in Pennsylvania and not being allowed to ship across state lines into the state of Ohio. And we heard from the supplier that's supplying the security ceiling for the jail area that was supposed to be delivered this week has been pushed back till the end of May. So we're not sure exactly how that's going to affect it, but the project continues, and Monarch does not have any intentions of stopping construction as long as they're able to maintain enough staffing to do so. So what you're looking at there is a picture of the outside of the building, and then the picture on the right is actually the 2 service windows for the dispatch area. So that's what our customers are going to see when they come into the building. This is a picture of the second floor, common area outside of some of the administrative offices. This is the same area. This is the administrative section up on the second floor, and a substantial amount of drywall has been hung up on the second floor. Picture the jail area where work continues in there. This is the system that's being applied on the outside of the building that holds the fiber cement panels, and some of that has been installed already. So this is getting close to what the final look of the building is going to look like. The slots in the fiber cement board there actually receive LED lights, so it's going to be lit, and I think it's going to be a dramatic, iconic effect, if you will. Another shot there of the outside of the building, and that's what I've got. So I'll stop answering, or I'll answer any questions you may have.
Did anyone on council have a question? Okay, I don't see anyone. Thank you, Chief.
Quick as I could there.
Chief Mousa. Kirk.
Well, good evening, everyone. What I have prepared tonight is more along the lines, again, of what Chief Vanover just was talking about. Around March 17th and 18th, we did a lot of the very similar things that the police department did. Closed our buildings to the public. Public education details were restricted or canceled, along with all the meetings here held in the building. All that was canceled. No EMS students, no group training even amongst the department. They can train amongst themselves at each station, but the maneuvering around the city that usually goes on so we can train as a group isn't happening. Building inspections were suspended as well. One, a lot of the buildings didn't have people in them anymore. And two, we just didn't think it was worth the risk. Some of the big things that we've done is we actually came up with a COVID-19 response plan for our people that mirrored what the CDC recommendations were, what the medical direction for the Southwest Ohio recommended. And that also was, of course, mirrored by the Ohio Department of Health and Hamilton County. Some of our big challenges were actually EMS supplies themselves. First responders aren't on the top tier of those. I mean, I know you hear that on the news and everything, but hospitals and other places do get them before we do. We are above the general public, but it became very, very tough. Some of the really important stuff that we may need, like the surgical mask or the procedure mask that you keep hearing about on the TV, we didn't have because we don't routinely use those in EMS. But that's one of the most important things that can be done when you're transporting a patient inside the back of an ambulance in that confined space. So we were able to obtain some of those through the state stockpile. So we're in good shape with that. Another thing that we needed desperately was gowns for the particulates, the respiratory droplets that these patients generate. Again, not something that we generally worry about as much in the day-to-day operations in EMS. With this, it's critically important that we have those. And through Hamilton County Hazmat Team and the state and some of our own wheeling and dealing, we were able to obtain several hundred of those, which is going to work out to be probably about what we need until the regular suppliers can kick back in. So we've also been working with Blue Ash and Evendale and some with our collaborative partners to make sure that everybody has what they need as far as the first responders and the fire department and EMS. It seems like everybody had their own little special stockpile of things that they had. We had a good amount of N95 masks. Other people had hand sanitizer. Other people had some gowns. So we've been, working back and forth to make sure everybody's safe and everybody's covered as much as they can be. A thing you've heard on the news too is about the disinfectants. Chief Vanover mentioned that as well. We use hospital grade disinfectants, which is great for the ambulance. It's excellent for that. You don't want to use that in your house. Every disinfectant starts out as an insecticide. And so you don't want to be spraying that around on your kitchen counters or on your lazy boys. It's really bad news. So we had to make sure that we had enough of that stuff that you could use in a residential setting. And we were finally able to get some of that, again, through some of our partners. Some other items that we have, just some operational changes. Some of the most important things we do, we geared up for respiratory patients, which is what COVID, presents as. Unfortunately, some of the stuff we did purchase extra of, you're not really supposed to use anymore, like CPAP machines, Even the innovations, putting the breathing tube down somebody's throat, nebulized medications for asthma and such. Really, they don't want us doing those at all in the field unless it's life or death. So some of that stuff that we were able to get, we didn't need. And some things that we couldn't get, we desperately did need, but we've worked through the majority of that. We have also worked on staffing plans on the off chance that, a significant number of the staff is unable to come to work through caring for someone else or for themselves or being quarantined. We're ready to handle that if that was ever to occur. We also made plans to use Station 88 as a temporary quarantine station or a self-isolation station. If the numbers became too great from city employees, even not just from the fire department, we actually made plans to use the rec center as well. As a step down thing for asymptomatic people who did not show the symptoms of the virus but needed to self-isolate. Lots of procedures are in place to deal with, if you have somebody sick at home, can you come to work? If you get exposed inadvertently at work, exactly what needs to happen. All of this backed up by what happens from the CDC and from the regional Southwest Medical Direction, so that we know if you are exposed, this is exactly what we need to do. And we don't have to jump through a lot of hoops each time. We know the answer as soon as it happens. And communicating that to the staff has been paramount, letting them know that the city does back them up, that we do have, we are looking out for them, and that we do have a plan just in case something like that does happen, since they are on the front lines of this. Majority of the admin staff and office staff has been sent to work from home, subject to recall. Again, we communicate these changes that seems, you hear them on the news all the time of what is recommended today, that the recommendations for the EMS providers do change. We update our guidelines and our decontamination procedures to match those. Run volume wise, we're not overrun with calls. We're just above average at this point. What has changed is the number of respiratory calls that we're dealing with or potential COVID cases. Those type of calls have doubled in the past 2 weeks alone. So whereas before they would account for about 20% of our call volume, right now they're running about 49 to 50% of our call volume. So nothing we currently can't handle as long as we maintain adequate staffing. It's just, it's not completely unexpected. But that's really about all I have for this evening. If anybody has any questions.
Does anyone have any questions? Kind of raise your hand. I'm not seeing any. Let me just move this out of the way. No, I think we're good. Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate both of you.
Scott also has one single slide to talk about with the tax department, just as an update.
Yeah, if you can make me a co-host, I'll share a screen. And then I can go ahead and also talk through, I have 3 pieces of legislation I can go ahead and touch on. Two ordinances on the agenda this evening that I want to touch on. Ordinance 2020-13E. This relates to the loan to the Hyatt Place that's attached to our convention center. The hotel travel leisure industry was hit especially quickly and hard by the current pandemic, and the legislation provides for 2 quarters of basically abatement or vacation of the loan. So we receive quarterly payments from the hotel along with a credit given to the quarterly transient occupancy tax that hotel pays. So we will have 2 quarters where the tax won't count as their repayment, and their quarterly payments won't be made, and there won't be interest accrued on the loan. That's some much needed relief, similar to what they received on the private sector from their loans. It's something they very much needed. Ordinance 2020-14E. It relates to the Delta Marriott, similar but different. We have a sorry, I think do you see the screen that says important changes due to COVID-19?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I have 2 displays and it looks a little different on mine. Ordinance 2020-14E relates to a forgivable loan extended to the Delta Marriott. Due to some slowdowns kind of before the pandemic, That did not open up as they expected here at the first of 2020. And this would push the agreement back basically everything a single year. So everything will kind of roll forward from 2021. Also, Resolution 2020 R6E. This is an approval we do every 8 years. Hamilton County is elected to apportion the local government funds different than the statute. And what this does is kind of renew our approval of that alternate method. So this is, we need to approve that, and so the county can submit that to continue doing it in the fashion we've done since 1988. So I'll touch a couple real quickly on the slide I have pulled up. The first 2 bullet points are really the important ones for everybody, and these affect the due dates with taxes. All 2019 net profit and individual tax returns that were due on April 15th are now due July 15th, 2020. And then all first and second quarter estimated tax payments that were originally due April 15th and June 15th are now due July 15th. So we have almost all of our tax staff up and running remotely. We have a skeleton crew kind of in the building handling deposits and the mail that comes in that continues to come in. So we're still there and available to help. Anybody should call if they have any questions or concerns about their taxes. If anybody is ready to file, we encourage them to do so. You can continue to e-file. That's available through our website. And then also you can drop off or mail items. There's a drop box at our building. Typically with the majority of taxes for residents, all that's needed is your federal 1040 and W-2. So we're happy to help. And that's all I have.
Okay, Michael Blomer and John Creech are also attending tonight. I'm not sure if they want to briefly talk about either one of their departments since they're attending though. Not hearing anything.
I'm unmute. I unmuted him.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, good evening. Yeah, I'll give a brief update on the Recreation Center. As the mayor touched on earlier, our goal right now is I think I'm back.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. As the mayor touched on earlier, our goal is to continue to engage the community, primarily on Facebook now. We're obviously getting some really cool ideas, activities, and crafts, different pieces of information, walking routes, things like that for different folks in the community to be able to do on a daily or weekly basis. One of the big things that's going on right now is we have a lot of AARP tax help folks that rely on the tax help that we do with the volunteers from AARP. That has been delayed indefinitely. And we are hoping that once we get somewhat back to normal, we'll be able to accommodate AARP with some new conditions, and they'll be able to accommodate some more appointments for those folks that still need that tax help. But we encourage everyone to check out our Facebook page, Sharonville Parks and Recreation. We do have a really cool Facebook bingo coming up, so make sure you check that one out. That should be a lot of fun. But yeah, we're trying to stay as active as we can, and we're encouraging folks to continue to keep an active lifestyle. And we hope to see everyone soon. And we hope that COVID-19 stuff will be over so we can get to pool season here soon. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Yes.
John, do you have anything?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, great. Can you see me? I can see everyone. Anyway.
We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm just showing up as a black screen there. Sorry about that. But anyway, yeah, the 5 of us in community development, yeah, work continues. We're still getting phone calls. We're still getting permits are being dropped off at the department through the police department. Although we've really gone, a lot of that has gone digital now, which is great now that we've started processing things through the credit card system. It's actually working out quite well. Inspections are going on. So really there's no change except we're just kind of working remotely. Jerry, our building inspector, when he does go out, he's obviously exercising social distancing. You know, for the most part, we are, yeah, businesses as usual. Oh, I think I'm coming on now. Oh, maybe not. I can see. But do you guys have any questions of me or the department?
Did anyone have questions?
Thank you. Oh, there we go. Just at the end.
Okay.
All right, Scott talked about 2 of the ordinances already. The other ordinance for council's consideration tonight is 2020-12E, which is the process for an emergency declaration. Mark Pietmeyer's put in a lot of work on this ordinance, so I'll have him talk about it.
Thank you, Jim. I won't be as dramatic as John, fading from black into my picture. So I'm not that talented. When Jim first called me on this, a number of communities had, the mayors had declared a state of emergency. And when Jim and I first talked about it, he thought it was necessary in order to qualify for federal funding down the road. And the communities where the mayor had done it, I found were basically charter communities. And just a little background, in Ohio, you can either be a charter community or a statutory community. Blue Ash, for instance, is a charter community, and everything they do is a form of government. They have a charter that governs that. And the mayor has very wide and vast powers. Sharonville is a statutory community, and we're basically modeled over what the state of Ohio legislature has indicated we should act under. And as a result, the mayor does not have, unless given by council, the same wide power and authority that you have in a charter community. So in looking at what some of these other charters had, the mayor or the acting mayor or other people in the community in a state of emergency had the authority to do certain pretty widespread things, but it's you know, things like declare a curfew and close streets and operate not with contracts, a lot of things that you would never envision that we would have to do, but I don't think any of us ever envisioned we'd be doing this. So it might be because of a hurricane or a tornado or a flood or who knows what might happen, an earthquake. I don't think we would have ever imagined it would have been because of a virus, but I thought it would be better to kind of cover every situation that might come up in the future. And then the other thing we discussed, should we just have council declare an emergency, or should we just give the mayor or the acting mayor anytime in the future when this may happen again, the authority to do it? So trying to be as proactive as possible in discussing it, we all thought it best, and law committee agreed it would be better to enact basically a new chapter of our ordinances, giving the mayor, or the kind of the sequence of power would be, if Kevin is not available, Vicky is the acting mayor, would be next in line. Next in line would be the safety service director or somebody appointed by the mayor. And then the final person in line, if none of them were available, would be the police chief. So again, these are the things that would only come up if we have a very dire situation like we have now. But I basically crafted this to cover any situation in the future where we find ourselves really not able to act as we normally are as a form of government. And it gives right now, Kevin, very wide powers to do as he sees fit. And right now, all we're doing is following what the governor has told us to do, which is stay-at-home orders. But if things would get worse, and hopefully they don't, again, there's a very wide ranges of power, even like I say, a curfew. I don't think we'd ever have to do that. But if it came down to that, this would give Kevin the power to do that. And he would not have to convene council to do any of these things. He could just do it. So that's basically what this ordinance provides. Any questions on that? Okay.
I don't
Okay.
see anybody.
Scott's already talked about the first resolution. The next two resolutions, 2027 and 2028, are both police related. They're both MOUs with DART and then with the FOP. Steve, can you talk about those?
You said the DART was the first one?
Yes.
Okay. So the MOU, the resolution that's in front of you guys tonight is to allow the safety service director and the police department to enter into an agreement again with DART, which is the Hamilton County Drug Abuse Reduction Task Force. The task force was started sometime back in the 1980s, and Sharonville was one of the original founding members of the department or the task force back in the 80s. At some point in the early 2000s, we became a non-member agency, or we dropped out of being a contributing member to the task force. And in the last, probably 5 or 6 months, I've been having some conversations with the commander of the task force of DART about becoming a member agency again. We've counted on and relied on DART for some services, and they've been a really strong collaborative partner over the last, however, for a period of time now. And he approached me saying that it was getting more and more difficult, basically, for him to justify coming into Sharonville and helping us out with our drug cases and those type of things, and not be a member agency. So that was the main emphasis or impetus for him to approach me about becoming a member agency again. It just makes it easier for him to justify spending time in Sharonville and helping us out with some of the stuff that we've been asking for his help on. DART, for those who don't know, basically deals with the lower level, street level offenses. They don't handle going after the major things. They typically turn those over to other larger task forces, but we've been cooperating with us. We've been able to put together some drug cases that were too big for Sharonville to handle on our own in terms of resources and those type of things. So I see it as a win-win situation in dealing with some of the issues that we have to combat in the city of Sharonville, especially some of the drug activity and things that are going on in our hotels. And DART is really excited about us becoming a member again. That's the feeling I get. The MOU that's in front of you says that there is a financial commitment on the part of the city of Sharonville or any agency that participates in the task force. We'll say that is in there now, but DART has not done that, or they have not collected that participation fee for at least the last 5 years, and they have no intentions of doing so as long as their funding stays in place and they're able to continue to support themselves. That MOU also says that there is asset forfeiture sharing from their drug cases. They have not been doing that either, which has been the mechanism that's allowed them to not collect member agency fees. So I don't at this point see any financial impact on the city of Sharonville in terms of having to pay a fee to be a member agency. And if that does get to be the case, or it gets to be too large, then I see where it's as simple as easy as not being a participating agency anymore, if that's what we were to decide to do. The MOU also addresses manpower, and based on the size of an agency, it asks for a commitment in providing an officer to be a member of the task force and support their efforts. I would love to do that at some point, but they, again, are not strictly enforcing that at this point, giving all of the financial things and the staffing issues that police departments have in general. And I think it would be a great benefit for us at some point after maybe this COVID-19 thing is over and done with, and the officers that we have off that are injured right now and awaiting, essentially what are considered elective surgeries. Once we get all of our manpower back and get the full staff, I see it as an opportunity to send an officer to DART for the training and for the experience and for being a good law enforcement partner in the efforts as to what they're trying to do. But at this point, it's not something that would have to be done either. So that's where we're at right now. I see it as a win-win for us and DART at this point to try to become a member agency, and this resolution allows, like I said, I think the Safety Service Director, Mr. Lucas, and the Police Department to enter into that memo of understanding with the task force. Can answer any questions.
Anyone have questions? I don't see any.
Okay, the second legislation, or I don't know if it's an ordinance or a resolution in front of you, is an MOU with the FOP, the two bargaining units in the police department, the patrol officers bargaining unit and the sergeant's bargaining unit. This goes along with the schedule changes that have already been made, where the police department has switched to 12-hour shifts. The collective bargaining agreement allows the chief of police to declare an emergency and switch shifts and change work schedules for the officers that are covered by those bargaining units, with simply me declaring an emergency. But that also, in doing so, will affect some other portions of the contract that don't necessarily have language that addresses what happens if the chief declares an emergency and changes work schedules and work periods and all those type of things, specifically around overtime, sick time accrual, vacation accrual, and some of the benefits that our employees receive. So this was an MOU that was worked out in cooperation with both bargaining units. So I sat down with the representatives of both bargaining units and their union representative and worked out this agreement to make sure that we had something memorialized or something in writing that says, here's how we're going to handle a few other changes in the contract that would be effective when we switch to the 12-hour shifts. So I see this as really just cleaning up some things and making sure that we're all on the same page, and documenting and memorializing what we've all agreed to. So can't say enough that they were both bargaining units were very cooperative in coming up with this agreement, and they are completely in agreement with the way things are being handled right now with the 12-hour shifts and what we're doing to make sure that we are keeping our employees as safe as we can.
Are there any questions? I don't see any. Thank
That is
you
all
again, Chief.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead, Jim.
I was just going to say that's all the legislation this evening, that all those pieces have been reviewed and recommended by the Law Committee.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Lucas this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to my report. The first thing I would like to do is to thank all of our dispatchers. It's National Dispatcher Week, and I would like to thank all the hardworking people over in our police department that take care of us on a daily basis. They do a fabulous job. Unfortunately, they're not going to get my treats this week, so I'll owe them. So just let them know, Chief, that I will be dropping by with some treats.
Will do, and thank you for recognizing them. They're essential to what our officers are doing.
Yes, they are. Thank you. And second, I would like to send out condolences. One of our longtime volunteer firemen passed away this week, Vern Dartery, and I wanted to send out condolences to his family, who some still live in Sharonville. I believe his wife, Mary Ann, is a part of our seniors group, or she was. And they live over on the west side of Sharonville. So condolences to them. Thank all of you for practicing our Zoom meeting the other night, and thank you for being part of this Zoom meeting. And I will move on to our Clerk of Council. Mrs. Buhite, do you have anything?
No, I don't. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on then to our Law Director, Mr. Pete Meyer.
Couple things. I was contacted last week by Annette from the VFW Ladies Auxiliary about the Memorial Day essay writing contest that they normally sponsor. And she said because these schools are closed, they would not be sponsoring that this year. Vicki and I spoke about it, and she talked about maybe contacting the schools anyway and still having that contest. But we also discussed that the winners of that, I forget if we have 3 or 4, whatever it might be, normally appear at council with their families to read the essay, and then they also read them at the Memorial Day event. And right now, I'm not sure if when we will next have an in-person council meeting, or if by Memorial Day, we will be able to have a group gather together in close proximity for the event. So we both today, in discussing that, thought we'd probably wait till the next council meeting. And if we are going to have it or not going to have it, we would have to decide by then to put things in place. So that's kind of on hold right now. On the homeless people staying in the hotels, I forget who from the city contacted me. It might have been Linda, the tax commissioner, but there was a request from the group that is footing that bill for the city to agree to waive the hotel tax that would be billed to them to lessen the bill. And I turned that down mainly because there's a state law, there's actions by the commissioner, and there's also a local ordinance that puts all that into place. And I don't think anybody in the city has the authority, number one, just to say this person does or does not have to pay that tax. I think at a minimum, it would take council action. And I also thought it would be a bad precedent to decide a certain group of residents. And it's, again, it was a well-meaning request, but it's just something that the city cannot just decide to let one group pay and another group not pay. So I just took it upon myself to not even go any further than that, to say they should not even honor that request or even look into that any further. And then the last thing on Mayor's Court, the Mayor's Court was suspended the entire month of April, and right now it's set to pick up again May 4th, I believe is the first Wednesday in May. And Mayor's Court is held in City Council area, and it's normally probably about a third full. Sometimes it might be half full. I think when it picks up again, because it's been delayed so long, it'll probably be a packed house. So I talked to the magistrate today, and I think he's going to talk to the mayor about delaying it either further, because until this thing is really behind us, we don't think it's a good idea to have that many people collectively gather in a courtroom setting like that. So nothing's been decided. And again, Steve Tolbert, our magistrate, I believe, was going to reach out to Kevin to get his feelings on that. But his thought was probably to delay it till at least late May, possibly the beginning of June. And in checking with some other Mayor's Courts people, most of them have already done that. And that is my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Pete Meyer? Kevin?
Yes.
Yeah, so just as a follow-up on the issue of the hotel tax issue with regard to the homeless groups of individuals, and there may be more than one group that are staying in different hotels. We also received calls through the administration. I know Jim they contacted him. We came to the same conclusion as Mark did. We also called down to the county to see what they were doing with their transient occupancy tax, to see if they were receiving the same requests, and they were, and their response is the same as ours. However, there is a little bit of a loophole in all that. If these groups actually end up staying in the hotels for, I think it's a period of 30 days, they wouldn't be transient occupants at that point anyway, and therefore they wouldn't be subject to the tax. So depending on the length of time for which they are staying in our hotels will have some impact on whether or not that tax has to be paid. So, but that was, I think that's a response that both we have had as a community, as well as the wider county community has had the same response as far as our recommendations to you as council, because I agree with Mark. We couldn't do it administratively anyway. You would have to do it, but we're not even bringing that to you. It doesn't seem like the appropriate response at this point in time, or does it sound like it will be necessary at the end of the day? The other issue with regard to Mayor's Court, I did receive an email from our magistrate today. They are definitely not starting back up court for May 4th. At the earliest, it will be I think it's the third week of May, although it's very possible and it probably potential that it won't be until June that we will have our first mayor's court hearings back up and running. So we're just looking for direction from the governor and when things can start opening back up. And from there, we'll make some determinations on when the city building will open back up and therefore allowing for mayor's court to start. We also obviously have, we use our building for things like county court once a week and some other type of things. So we'll continue to coordinate our efforts with those groups when they start back up from a court standpoint as well.
Anyone else? Oh, do I see hand? Okay. That's all for Mark. Now I'm going to flip it over, and it is our time for our residents that wish to be heard. I'm going to give you an opportunity if you want to speak this evening. Do me a favor. I'm going to just go by whoever raises their hand. So if anyone would like to speak, I see Needy Beatty. I'm going to allow you to speak right now. There you go. Hi, Needy. You need to unmute.
Can you hear me
There you
now?
go.
Okay, hope everyone's having a good night representing Delta tonight. As Scott said earlier, we were a little delayed in our project just with the scope of work from design, interiors, redoing elevators and whatnot. And then Marriott earlier this month furloughed 90% of their staff. And with our opening managers getting furloughed and our shipments also being delayed, we unfortunately did not meet our target line. But we are hoping for midsummer opening. And I just wanted to take a minute to thank you guys for your consideration in postponing our payment plan until January 1st so we can just get the ball rolling, catch up. As you guys know, this pandemic has hit the hotel industry extremely hard, especially with us. Banquets is down, hotels down. So it's going to take us a little bit of time to get back up on our feet. So I just want to make sure that you guys know we are 80% complete. We're looking forward to getting the hotel up and running. Our team is doing as much as we can to help the community. But unfortunately, with us being as hit as hard as we are, we weren't able to make our payments. So just asking for your support in getting that postponed.
Thank you, Needy.
Thank you.
And it looks like nobody else wants to speak this evening. Sam, did you want to speak? Nope. Okay, so we're going to move on to our council committees. Our community development is Mr. Tankersley. Do you have a report tonight?
I have no report this evening. Just want to advise everybody that during this downtime, if they want to look at the 2030 plan, input's helpful. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I did see something on Facebook about a survey people could take, so that would be wonderful. Community services, Mr. Lippert.
Thanks. Thanks to all the first responders and stay safe. We were scheduled to have a meeting on April 8th, but we canceled that in light of the public health emergency. Mr. Blomer submitted a written report that was passed on to Mrs. Buhite for the minutes, and it basically echoed what he talked about tonight. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to our budget and finance, Mr. Cook.
Thank you. No report this evening. I will follow up with the committee. We may have a meeting virtual next month, and I'll coordinate that with Scott. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to honored citizens, Mrs. Knight.
No report, but I also like to thank the dispatchers. I have a couple friends that are the dispatchers, so I just appreciate their help with Vicki. One of these days we'll get something to them. So
there you go.
I just want to say thank you so much.
Thank you, Sue. And last but never least, our Law and Safety Committee Chair, Mr. Schmidt.
Well, thank you, Vicki. The next Law and Public Safety Committee meeting will be on the 21st, 4 o'clock. Additional information on this meeting can be found on the city's website. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, rule suspension motion. All the voting members, please. I need a motion to suspend for first and only reading of ordinances 2020-12E, 2020 13E, 2020 14E, and resolutions 2020 R06E, 2020 R07E, and 2020 R08E. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
So moved by Mr. Tankersley, second by Mr. Cook. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. And Terry, that motion does carry. We'll move on to, we have no unfinished business, so we're going to move on to our new business. Mrs. Buhite, if you go ahead and start with that.
First and only,
Barry, you got muted.
hold on. Yeah, hold on just a second.
Okay. You're still
Okay,
moving.
Sorry. All right, first and only reading of emergency ordinance 2020-12E, enacting Sharonville Codified Ordinance 131.01 and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2020-12E?
Oh,
So moved by Mr. Wilson, second by
I'll
Mr.
second.
Lippert. So we have a motion by Mr. Wilson, a second by Mr. Lippert. Roll call, please.
Thanks. Mr. Tankersley,
yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. Duda,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mrs. Knight,
Yes.
Mrs. Schmidt, Mr. Schmidt.
Yes. Yes.
Emergency ordinance 2020-12E has been approved. Sorry, these are on my computer, so it's going to be a second.
That's okay.
I didn't think about printing them out.
It's a whole new world.
Emergency ordinance 2020-13E. Authorizing the safety service director to enter into an amended economic development with Hyatt Place Hotel and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2020-13E? So moved by Mr. Cook, second by Mr. Duda. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. Duda,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mrs. Knight,
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
Ordinance 2020-13E has been approved. Emergency ordinance 2020-14E, first and only reading, authorizing the safety service director to enter into an amended economic development agreement with Marriott Delta Hotel and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2020-14? So moved by Mr. Duda, second by Mr. Wilson. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll. Mr. Tankersley?
No.
Oh, okay, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Lippert,
No.
Mr. Duda,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mrs. Knight,
Yes.
and Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
Ordinance 2020-14E has been approved. Emergency Resolution 2020 R06E, authorizing the adoption of an alternative method of apportioning the local government fund, first and only reading.
Is there a motion to pass resolution 2020 R06E?
Yes.
So moved by Mrs. Knight, second by Mr. Lippert. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Mrs. Buhite, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. Duda,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mrs. Knight,
Yes.
and Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
Emergency Resolution 2020 R06E has been approved. First and only reading of Emergency Resolution 2020 R07E, a resolution authorizing the Safety Service Director and Chief of Police to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Northeast Hamilton County Drug Task Force and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to pass resolution 2020 R07E? So moved by Mr. Schmidt, second by Mr. Cook. Is there any discussion? I see none. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tankersley,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. Duda,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mrs. Knight,
Yes.
and Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
Emergency Resolution 2020 R07E has been approved. First and only reading of Emergency Resolution 2020 R08E, a resolution authorizing the Safety Service Director and Chief of Police to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Sharonville FOP OLC and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to pass resolution 2020 R08E? So moved by Mr. Tankersley, second by Mrs. Knight. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Tankersley,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. Duda,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mrs. Knight,
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
Emergency Resolution 2020 R08E has been approved.
Thank you. Great job, Terry.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no, you did great. Okay, this is the last time for residents that wish to be heard, so I'm going to flip over to our attendees just to see if anyone else wants to speak. If you're attending and listening and want to speak, please raise your hand. I see no one, so I will go ahead. Are there any other matters to be brought before council this evening? I see nothing. I do want to say we were going to have a student government day the end of April, and that has been postponed. We will probably end up doing that next school year, seeing what all goes on with that. So we will bring that back, but it'll probably be for the 2021 school year. Anybody else have anything this evening? Please be safe and take care of each other. Mayor, go ahead.
Sorry, Vicki. I just wanted to thank our friends at ICRC and Jason, who's behind the scenes. They set all this up so that we could get this information out to you in a way that's safe to all of you, safe to our community, and provide an opportunity for us to get feedback from the community. So thanks to them. Thanks for the technology for making this happen. Thanks to the state of Ohio for giving us the ability to do this in this manner, because obviously it required some law changes in order to provide for this in this weird, unusual time. But most of all, thanks to our partners at ICRC and for making this available for all to participate and to see how your government continues to work during this time.
Thank you, Mayor. If nothing else, is there a motion for adjournment? So moved by Mr. Tankersley, second by Mr. Lippert. All those in favor, yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. And we do stand adjourned. Thank you very much.